yo, 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 yo. Okay, that works. I think my camera's on. We used the wrong thing. Should be.
Rody, can you hear me? Rody, can you hear me? There it is. Something. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I hear you guys.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I'll be right back. Give me 1 minute.
We're not live, thank God, yet. What's up, guys? We'll be live in just a second. I'm just waiting on my two other guys to pop in. I don't know what's going on over here. Looks like we might have Rody in a minute.
Hey, Bobby, talk for a minute.
Can you hear me, bro? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
That's not the right one.
You guys can hear me. I appreciate that. We'll be live in a minute. Sorry for the wrong thing we've got posted up here. It's not the survival picks. It's our picks of the week. And we've got sheets in here now. So we're gonna go live and just hope that Rody gets in there.
No, I'm here.
All right, we're good, guys. What's up? Football season. What's going on?
Yeah. I thought we were going to talk about the 2-game League of Legends slate. Shit. Okay. I entered the wrong chat. Sorry about that. Okay. That's fair. Okay.
In all fairness,
I got to work on my football now. Shit.
Yeah, we're all going to be crying about how we could have won $1 million, and Sheets is going to be stoked about the $1,500 League of Legends win. I'm sure.
Hey, excuse me. You know how much $1,500 is?
Hey, no, I'm not saying we're going to win the million. We're going to be complaining on a day where we end up losing money, but we could have won $1 million, and you're going to have the.
And I'll be flexing. I'll be flexing my League of Legends slate. Exactly.
All right. Well, it's really great to have everybody back. It's nice to be back with you guys. It's nice to have everybody back in the chat, and it'll be fun to talk through this slate. I mean, look, it's week 1. This is all fun. It's exciting. Everybody's going to win. It feels like they're going to win $1 million until the actual slate starts playing. And you see the red zone and you're like, oh, Travis Etienne has 3 touchdowns in the first quarter. Okay. Well, I decided to fade Travis Etienne this week. Anyway, that kind of thing. I'm not saying I actually am doing that. I'm just saying. We got Evan has popped in and said that he wants to bet on dodgeball. So we're going to have to like expand our reach a little bit other than just Sheets, because Sheets is playing everything. How are you guys doing? And Sheet, to start with you, what's going on? What are you thinking about doing this slate? I think it's going to be spread out, so I'm guessing you're going to embrace a little bit of that spread out and play a bunch of different stacks type of thing.
No, so this is what I did, and I said this in the video earlier this week. I think one of my call what I was called my part of my style last year, which I didn't. It just felt wrong, but I did it anyway. I spread a little bit too far out, I think, last year. Mm-hmm. And I was going to embrace a little less of the spread out and a little more of the core stuff, just to kind of see how that kind of felt. Now, in fairness, the week 1 is probably the worst week to do that, because the week 1 probably carries the most amount of variance, right? In addition to that, the salaries are so soft this week that you could play a perfectly reasonable second best lineup. You know what I mean? That's going to be lower owned. So what I did was I worked through my projections. I did whatever, and then what I did is I used SaberSim to build 150 lineups. That's probably all I'm doing today. I'm gonna max enter the $5. And just kind of roll with it, and then I'll probably play the showdown a little bit later. But what I did, and for those of you that watched our lecture on using SaberSim, what I did was I did try to jack up the ownership fade slider a little bit. Okay, so that what I did was I relied on the projections, but then I just kind of forced in a little bit of ownership fade to see if that would be enough to get me a little bit different. And then I have those builds, and that now it's 11 o'clock, and what I plan to do is use the next hour to like glean information and takes from you guys, so that like at 12 I can then kind of start filtering in, kind of good one-offs and kind of tweak my lineups to reflect, the expertise that I'm picking up here. So you asked me what my plan is. That's my plan. I'm doing the same thing, by the way, for FanDuel. I am. Did I max enter that one? I think I max entered the FanDuel one as well. This the small buy-in, whatever. And then I also play 30 lineups in Yahoo, and I'm going to be doing that every week as well. I'm going to do 30 lineups in Yahoo, and basically the same approach until further notice is exactly what I just said. So that's conceptually what I'm doing today. You could talk about conceptually what you guys are doing, then we can get into the actual exposures and stuff.
Yeah, I like it. Rody, why don't you chime in a little bit? What are you playing today, and sort of what's sort of an overall strategy? Because I'm finding it hard not to be a little bit spread out, especially because I'm playing the 150 of the $4 and the $5 on FanDuel, the 150 of the $5 on DraftKings. And I did spread out a little bit, but I still was able to keep it less than 10 stacks of main focus, which isn't like incredible. But what are you doing today? And talk
well, Bobby, let me ask you this in a similar way that I did. What just so the people know, have some context about the type of stuff you're recommending. Like, if you don't mind, like, what are you playing today? Like, what are you doing?
So I'm playing like I'm maxing out the $5 on DraftKings. I'm maxing out the $4 on FanDuel, and then on top of that, I'm playing like 3 in the 333 on DraftKings, 3 in the 150, 10 in the $33.
And is the 150 a 3 max?
The 150 is a 3 max.
Okay.
And then 10 in the $33, as well as some spread out other, a bunch of single entries mixed in. But for the most part, in the giant field, I was really, embracing a lot of variance. I have like 5% Atlanta stacks, like weirdness. You know what I mean?
Wait, so everybody has something. So and Rody, what type of action are you giving today? Like, what are you playing?
I'm going a lot of MME today too. Like, I'm kind of spread out a little bit more. I'm maxing all the MMEs. I got 20 entries in that $100 Mega Milli. I got all the sweeps, like the $150 ones, the 3 entry max, both of them.
What is that? What is the Mega Milli? I don't even know what that is. What is that?
That's the $5.
There's a $5 and there's a $100. I'm doing 150 in the $5 and 20 in the $100.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know there was.
I've got 11 in the $100 as well.
Maybe I'll put like 10.
Yeah, I pretty much built like 20 main lineups focused around a few teams, and then I built like 150 around some of the similar teams. But like I'm pretty spread out a little bit, but like I still have like 3 or 4, three main teams I'm targeting for stacks.
Right. So talk a little bit about that, Rody. Talk about some of the teams that you're targeting, because I think that this I have a little fear that the game that's supposed to be the most popular could end up being. I mean, look, it's hard to ignore it, but just with what's going on with Arizona, it kind of feels like this could end up being like one of those weird massacres that we just like really wish we didn't play. But right now I have Kyler Murray as my highest owned quarterback, just behind Jalen Hurts actually. But what are you doing as far as that? Like, I know that's one of the obvious games, along with I know you're going to be all over the Chargers game because I know you. But what are we doing here with your main stacks here? What are your priority ones?
Yeah, my priority ones, I did get a little bit mixed bag. I did throw some Hurts in some of and got different. I got a lot of Detroit run backs. I like Swift today a little bit. Yep. I got a lot of Derek Carr stacks. Obviously I like that game, but I like both sides of that game. Very heavy on Herbert in the stacks. You can get quite different with that. I got a couple Lamar, stacks just to be in there, but I do have a lot of Mahomes. I'm actually very light on Kyler Murray stacks today. I do have, he's in, a top 10 of my pool, but I'm heavy on Herbert, Mahomes, and Derek Carr the most. I do have some Cousins a little bit in there. I have some Hurts, but I think he's going to be a little bit chalky. And I think Murray, I do have some rules I put in where I just stack like one side of a team and not bring back anybody.
Right.
In KC, I did start getting a little bit of KC. I'm a little worried that Arizona doesn't look that great. Mm-hmm. So like I do have a ton of Marquise Brown though. Like I'm having a hard time getting off that play. But like I do have some, like just a small percent, like where I just run like Travis Kelce, Mahomes or something.
Right.
And then like no bring back to try to get like like a little bit different. So
Mhm.
I only do like 4 to 5% out of all like 300 lineups like that. So
Right.
not too much, but just a little bit of sliver. Like you said, if it does get out of way, you know, you can kind of do that.
Right. And Sheets, who are you focusing on if you had to play a few lineups only? What teams do you think that you'd be the highest on
Well,
here?
so first of all, I did try to check to see about that $100 one. I think it's sold out. I don't see it anymore. So
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think it's sold out. I think.
I guess that's sold out, but that's okay. So my I guess we'll just get into it. So my highest owned set of stacks. Again, this is not going to be particularly off the board. Is going to be Minnesota. That's going to be and I would probably that would be the team that I would probably use if I were playing single entry or 3 match or something like that. And then the next one, I do have some Arizona is my next, but I also have whatchamacallit, a decent amount of Cincinnati. That would be that's another one. And you know, the thing is that one thing that's a theme, I guess, especially for the Minnesota, the Cincinnati plays for me, and I guess why other people are going to do it too, is that you really know where it's going. You know what I mean? Like you don't. There's not too much guesswork. I mean, listen, you have to guess of which one. If you had to pick between Jefferson and Thielen, who would get the most, unless you want to just cram them both in, and Irv Smith, you know what I mean? Like all these guys, you know, this is where the pass is going. And I'm buying into the narrative a little bit that with the new coaching staff at Minnesota, they're not going to be as much of a hashtag establish the run team as they were, you know,
Right.
and then they'll use these weapons that they have, you know, a little bit more. So maybe this is a good opportunity to showcase that. It's a pick'em game, you know, and so it rates to be very competitive the whole time. And yeah, so I'm into the Minnesota side, and similar to Cincinnati. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I mean it's Chase, Higgins, and Mixon. You know what I mean? Like that's where it's to me that's where the action is. So those are the two. Then the tougher one, obviously now with Rondale Moore out, is if you play Arizona, like what, you know, where to do it, because you're now, I believe, going to be in an environment where Marquise Brown has got to be just insane chalk. You know what I mean? Like if you're taking away the Rondale Moore stuff, whatever. So that's a decision you have to make. I didn't get any confirmation that Ertz is 100% playing. Is that I'm presuming he is for now. And that's obviously something. And I think the James Conner piece of that becomes more viable with Rondale Moore out also. So those are my 3 main ones, would be Minnesota, Cincinnati, and Arizona.
I understand a lot of that. That makes a lot of sense to me. Rody, what about what I am not I'm not going to make the mistakes I've made in the past, and I am not going to force liking receivers to make me play the quarterback. You're gonna see a lot. I'm gonna do this all year. I'm gonna play a lot more Lamar skinny stacks, Kyler skinny stacks, Jalen Hurts skinny stacks, and then play 2 receivers from both sides of Green Bay and Minnesota instead, and leave out the quarterback. I don't think you need to do that. I want the rushing upside of the quarterbacks, and I'm going to play much more that way and not force a situation because, you know, you're going to get 35 times the ball thrown 35 times. It's just so much harder to make up fantasy points through the air than it is on the ground. So I am going to mostly be playing running quarterbacks with very few exceptions, where I want to, but I can still use I've got a Trey Lance skinny stack where I'm playing both receivers from 2 receivers from Green Bay and 2 from Minnesota. I think you can stack games without using the quarterback. And I think it's a mistake that I've made in the past that I don't want to make again. And that is that you don't, unless you're playing a Joe Burrow crazy stack, or if I was honestly playing in my lineups where I am playing Cousins, I'm using all 3. I'm using Irv Smith and both receivers there. I'm just betting on it going nuts. I also have respect for Green Bay, so it's not a priority stack for me. Rody, how are you approaching it as far as that? Are you automatically going to do two receivers with the quarterback? Are you automatically going to say, or are you going to play some more skinny stacks and then maybe get some game stacks in as secondary stacks that you're using more receivers from than maybe the game you're targeting?
Yeah, I do like that. I do like I have seen more people going with, like you're saying, with like a like doing like I got like down like a receiver and then two guys on the other team with no no quarterback. Like you
Right.
get two receivers and a receiver, like three receivers or a running back receiver and an opposing receiver. So I do like that a little bit. I'm trying to get a little bit more of those in my builds. So I do like a lot of skinny stacks, like even just like a one type of stacks a little bit. So I do like loading up on games without the quarterback too, because you think there's a couple ceiling quarterbacks like you could get the ceiling quarterback, but then the Vikings game, Packers game could shoot out. But maybe Mahomes throws 6 touchdown passes today, and he's still the number one guy. But you also wanted to get, Justin Jefferson's caught 3 touchdowns, and you need him. And then Adam Thielen got 2 touchdowns or something, or something without Kirk Cousins threw 3 picks too. So I like that option, and that's a way to get different too. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and more people are popping in things in the Discord. Rody, I'm going to ask you about your Packers real quick because I think there's an interesting.
Before you do that, I want to comment on Clay Davis. He said blank screen. Do we have a blank screen or
no? That's old. He's watching.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay.
Rody, the thing I wanted to figure out was
the Packers. You were saying, okay?
Yeah, with the Packers, like. I do think you're going to see a much more run-heavy offense. And, the worry is that, look, you've got A.J. Dillon, but you just paid Aaron Jones. It does feel like a good spot to use Aaron Jones. And then at the same time, you have such cheap receivers where you have, one of the best quarterbacks in the history of football. How are you approaching something like that? Because we've got a few situations like that today, but no more so than I think Green Bay. Arizona would probably be next.
Yeah, I really like Aaron Jones today, to be honest with you. I'm very high up on Aaron Jones. He's loaded on my lineups today. So I do like the Adam Thielen, Aaron Jones mini stock. I'm heavy on that just because it's a mid-tier. And they're very cheap guys, and you can get them in some of your Herbert stocks, your Mahomes stocks. I'm getting a lot of the Dobbs guy, too, for the receiver for the Packers. I've tried to scale back these 3K receivers a little bit more today because I think a lot of people are going to be using them like Dobbs, Dotson, Wan'Dale Robinson. I do like a little bit for the Giants, but I think a lot of people are going to be loading these guys up, trying to get these big stacks, pay for CMC, pay for Jonathan Taylor. And I don't think that's the thing. I like these mid-tier builds like Pittman, Brown, Adam Thielen, like these 5K receivers more than the 3K guys. And I think you can just get the mid-tier running backs like Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, and Najee Harris. I think people are going to forget about him. I think that mid-tier back is still loaded today over the JT and CMC. So don't forget, like Swift's in that same category with Aaron Jones at like similar price. So the Packers are really a tough team to figure out. One guy I want a sleeper guy on the Packers is Robert Tonyan. I know he was hurt. I know he's that, but he's like a cheap tight end. He got 3 touchdowns one game last year. Rodgers likes to go to that play. He has no Devontae Adams this year. I think he's going to be a dump-off play that everyone's overlooking. I know Aaron Jones is that same role, but he might even play some slot, which he did last year too. Don't forget about that. That's why I like Jones. A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones could both play the same time, I think, a lot. They did it last year, even with Devontae, and I think that they don't have any weapons. They have to put their best players on in the field, and I think they're going to load these guys up on the field. A lot of short passes. Rodgers is going to be moving the ball quick. It's going to be slow, though. They do pace down a little bit, so that's why I do worry about the Vikings a little bit as well.
I have a comment.
Exactly.
So I have a comment about something that you said, Rody, and we'll just see if I'm right or not, but I remember this whole thing last year and the year before or whatever it is, and this the idea that people are going to play these 3K guys and whatever it is, they just don't. And I remember this. I forget who it was, or a couple of guys over the last couple of years where these guys would show up as like in some of the content as this guy's a pretty good punt play. This guy's a pretty good deep threat or whatever it is. And people just talk themselves into believing that these guys were going to be popular, and they all ended up like 2% owned. So if you like a guy like the Dobbs or the Giants guy or whoever it is, these 3K guys, I promise you, all these optimals are just going to jam in Pittman, and you know what I mean, and all the mid-range guys. I would not. I'll put it to you this way: I would not avoid the 3K guys because you think they'll be popular. I just don't think it's going to work out that way. I think that there's just too many of them, and I think that if you like any of these guys, I would just play him. I wouldn't say, boy, I would play Romeo Dobbs, but I think he's going to be no. Okay, I really don't think that that's going to be the case. I think that again, I'm not saying to play him, but if you don't play him, it shouldn't be because you think they're going to be popular. I don't think they're going to play these guys.
I think people will look to spend down in one spot and at receiver. And
But
I think
you don't
that
have to today. That's my point. You just don't have to.
I don't. Well, that's if you're depending on if you're doing the kind of build we're talking about. If
Right.
people are really going to play as much CMC and Jonathan Taylor as they're projected to, they're going to have to do something like that. So I actually totally agree that the middling route is the better route anyway. You're still getting more ceiling, and at the same time, you have just a slew of receivers in the 5K-ish range that are going to be, I think, as low owned as those guys are. Now, I understand your overall point, and you don't need to necessarily worry about it too much because I agree that they're not going to be like, I don't think any of them are going to be like 15% owned even.
Not even
But
close.
I think when you get 5 guys who are going to be, somewhere in the 8 to 10% range, I would rather take those chances on, rather than spending for one of them so I can play Justin Jefferson. I'd rather play Adam Thielen and Michael Pittman, even though the ownership will be high there. I'm just, you know what I'm saying? Like I understand the strategy of going more middling. My reasoning for not playing the guys is not the ownership. It's more the way that it's forcing you to build. And
I want to follow up on the Packer stuff just a little more, and only selfishly because I'm playing that game. So there's first of all, I like your idea of Tanyan, and I'm with you on the Aaron Jones thing. I have just oodles and oodles of Aaron Jones in my lineups. And the guy who's showing up for me, and this could be one of those like sucker 3K guys or whatever it is that it's just going to show up in optimals that maybe I just shouldn't play that much of, and that's Randall Cobb. What do you think? What do you think of that as like a Packer guy, or you know what I mean? Like what do you think of that play in general? Is that just too okay boomer play? You know what I mean? Or should we be playing these like Romeo Crennel guys, these Romeo Dobbs guys, these other guys? Or is it safe enough to just say, you know what, Randall Cobb's got history, Aaron Jones, you know what I mean, knows him a little bit. He's just going to give him the ball, and he's going to be good enough at 3K or whatever.
Yeah, I don't mind Cobb. I got like 5% of him on FanDuel and DraftKings a little bit. I do have some Rodgers stocks as well because I'm a Packers fan, so I do have a little bit of him.
Yeah.
And I have him a little bit of run back. He's a cheap filler play for the Kirk Cousins stack, so I do have those too. But for what it's worth, I want to go back to Dobbs for a second and Dotson, the 2 3K guys that I like. I do have 15% of them each.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 40. They're within 40 lineups of each out of the 150. So it's not like I don't have these guys that I talked about. Wan'Dale Robinson a little less at 5%, but like I'm filling it in with a little bit of these guys. I might bump that percent down a little bit still. I'm trying to get some of these other guys, but I am playing some of these cheaper guys too.
But we talked about this last year, Bob, and you even suggested this, and I think we should continue doing this, is to create this kind of like portfolio, these 3K freaking dart throws. You know what I mean? That could score like a 90-yard touchdown pass, whatever, and especially on a week 1, and just make sure you have like some of these guys, like Dotson's one, the Giants guys one, the Greg Dortch. You know what I mean? Like somebody, the guy, the Olande, whatever that guy's name, Olande, whatever it is. All these 3K guys that are all could get 0, right? Some of them might not even get a target. Who the hell knows? But in week 1, you get a 180-yard touchdown pass from one of these guys. And if you're playing, listen, it depends on your buy-in, right? I wouldn't play these guys maybe in like the big buy-in, like the Wildcat or whatever. But if you're playing 150. I would make sure, again, and this is the stuff that I'm trying to force in later, I would force in like at least one of these guys. And I don't want to say every lineup, but most of them. You know what I mean? Like you want to take shots on some of these guys, no?
Yeah, at the same time, you could take a shot on Michael Thomas, who's 5,700. And Michael Thomas is a guy we've paid 8,700 for many times, and It's been worth it. I don't know. I'd rather speculate on those situations than trying to spend down on those guys. I think getting some exposure is fine to me. But like with Randall Cobb, he's projected to be the 6th highest owned receiver, maybe the 5th highest owned receiver.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, this is not like it's. I don't think people are ignoring these guys. And by the way, right after him is Dobbs, and there's 6 eligible wide receivers and then there's the tight ends for Rodgers. We've seen Rodgers spread it out like crazy before when there's games with no Adams and stuff. I would rather rely on the running situation personally, but I will have the sprinkles of those guys in there. It's not like I have a hot take on one specific one. My favorite is probably Wendell. But that's obviously not anything unusual. I think Wendell and Dobbs are both completely legitimate. I just would rather. I mean, I'm looking at the highest owned receivers here, and including the cheap ones, and I think I'm kind of underweight on everyone except for Pittman. Every one of the guys who projected to be the highest owned, I guess I'm a little overweight on Juju, who's supposed to be over 10%, and I'm way overweight on Adam Thielen. But other than that, I'm basically underweight on every top end receiver today, and I'm willing to speculate more on the guys who are in the next tier: the Amon-Ra St. Browns, the DJ Moores, the Rashad Batemans, all of the Giants receivers. Like we talk about Wendell Robinson, but nobody's going to play Kadarius Toney. I love Mecole Hardman and MVS. I prefer MVS for what it's worth today. He's my favorite receiver in that game. He and Smith-Schuster are really close ownership wise for me. And then there's other simple things. Like I think AJ Brown is the best receiving play on the slate. From everything they've talked about in their camp, it is the AJ Brown show. They're running everything for him. At the same time, Devontae Smith is going to be overlooked. So I want to play Hurts in my skinny stacks, but at the same time, I love Goddard, Brown, and Smith. So I'm trying to figure out how to deal with that sort of situation. We're talking a lot about receivers, and I want to go back to Rhodey's point about the running backs. I think there are so many good options today. I'm very okay with skipping most of the top end guys. I like really mostly just the most expensive. Jones, Mixon, Barkley, Najee, Swift, and to some extent Kamara and Connor. I'll be overweight on, and then my highest owned is going to be Antonio Gibson. I know it's a weird one because of the whole narrative that he wasn't supposed to be the starting running, all the stuff, and then Eli Mitchell. I think there's just so many good middling plays that I don't think I need to spend all the way up for all that chalk, even though it does scare me because Jonathan Taylor could run for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns in this matchup. It does scare me all the time with Henry and McCaffrey, but I would rather just play the other guys and just still not going totally off the board, but just well overweight everyone that's not the highest priced guys who are going to be 20% owned. And then I'll tell you one thing: Eckler is projected to be less than 10% owned, or right around there. I will bet you anything that does not happen today. I think that Eckler and Connor are both going to be at much higher owned than they're projected to be. And but I'm more middling with the running backs. I like the middling receivers. I like the middling running backs, and that's mostly how I'm approaching this. Rhodey, Sheets. What are your, as far as running back goes? What are some of your ownerships? Who are you?
Yeah. I'm with, first of all, with respect to Gibson, I think this is an important point, and I know this is like people are just watching at this point, just kind of looking for the plays, whatever it is, but I do want to just try to teach concepts or whatever. I do think that it's important to take stands, manually and force them in or whatever. And Bobby's been pretty consistent throughout the week of Antonio Gibson being a strong play, and I think that, even if you script or do whatever, I think that it's okay to just take a big stand on somebody, because what that does for you is that first of all, if you play 150, for example, it just increases your combinations that you don't have to worry about, and I really like the Gibson concept. Whether I like the play or not, it's not even relevant. You know what I mean? But I think the idea of taking a play that is going to be low owned, that you have faith in, that the narrative might not be 100% on your side, which is keeping the ownership low, right? And you just whatever you think just differently than the public on something. I think it's important to get like for example, like in your 150, like what percent of Gibson do you have?
Like 25%,
right? Which is going to be at least twice the ownership,
and higher than more than that, I think, and then the higher buy-in's probably closer to 35%.
Yeah, the only thing is that and here's one thing that you can do. If you want to be a little different in those lineups, you could play Gibson like without the Commanders defense. You know what I mean? Because Commanders defense is probably going to be pretty chalky, and people that are scripting, I think those are going to be like a lot of the Gibson lineups. You know what I mean? Because the optimizers like to pair the running backs with the defenses or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's conceptually. Now, as far as like the actual plays, I am with you to some degree. I am kind of with the field on McCaffrey. If you presume 25% is with the field, I guess that sounds right. I mean,
yeah,
McCaffrey 25%. Where I don't have much of any of is Jonathan Taylor. I have barely any of him. And I'm going to, once again, let Derrick Henry beat me. And it's not going to be the first time he beats me. But I'm with you as far as the middling stuff. I mentioned Aaron Jones. And then my next highest owned is going to be Najee Harris, who I've been on pretty much all week. And I guess those are the two highest owned ones. And then there's Barkley. I have him at 22%, who I've been on as well. And that's not going to be particularly earth shattering either. But those, since you asked, like those are the top guys. If you want to talk about sprinkles, we could talk about kind of sprinkles a little bit. But let's talk to Rody about his running backs first, I guess.
Yeah, Rody, you mentioned a little bit before, but who are you a little bit higher on? You know, I know you mentioned a bunch of guys, but who do you see yourself having the most ownership of your running backs today?
Yeah, I mean, they're really wanting me to play Najee Harris today. I've had to bring down his ownership in my builds, and whatever I put the max exposure to, that's what they're giving me for the builds.
Right.
So if 50% Najee or 20, whatever I end up with on that max, I'm gonna get all the Najee I can. I'm getting some Dameon Pierce. I do like Eckler, about 20%, Mixon 20%, Swift. I don't think anybody's playing Kamara that much. I really like the Kamara.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Kamara Pitts running back receiver type tight end combo, just like I like the Jones Thielen stack.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I don't have any Jonathan Taylor or much CMC. Those guys. Well, in the MMB build, I do got about 17% CMC, but in any of my main lineups, CMC and Jonathan Taylor aren't really falling for me. I'm playing these expensive stacks. So, like, I need these cheaper running backs, like, Najee and Aaron Jones and Swift. I like a little bit, and Joe Mixon I like a little bit more. So,
yeah, I'm going to throw one other name if you want to try to win a tournament if your lineup feels chalky or whatever. Played Nick Chubb. Nobody's going to play Nick Chubb today.
I think I got one of him, yeah.
Because of Aaron Jones and Najee Harris. It's just not going to happen. Play Clyde Edwards-Helaire if you want some weird exposure to that game. Puke and play Miles Sanders. You know what I mean? There's some really, really low owned guys you can mix into that range. And that's sort of what I'm doing it more as a range. So with my Gibson exposure, I am, all these guys are surrounded there too, who are going to be much lower. Eli Mitchell, Travis Etienne, they'll be about the same ownership, he and Gibson. But I think you want to just like focus on that. Dameon Pierce you'd throw into some lineups at 4,800. I just really like the idea of doing that. I'll take one guy from my regular thing, and then I'll just – and me sheets, what I always do, and Brody, I'm sure at some point, some example. When I play guys, I tend to play them all in the same price range in those lineups together because it's just not a way that most people tend to build. They tend to decide different tiers. So I like getting everybody in there together. All the 60, the Harris, Chubb, and Jones kind of a mix. I just don't see anybody else doing that. With that said, Rody, any other thoughts on positions before we start answering some questions in chat here?
Yeah, I should have probably said some of my low end running backs. Like I do have some Edwards-Helaire. I just actually built a lineup with Edwards-Helaire and KC defense, kind of stack. Maybe it's a slower pace. Maybe they get a pick six and Edwards scores 2 touchdowns, and then maybe Juju and them don't hit. So you got to think like that type of way when you're building lineups. Like how do you get ahead of the field with what you're playing in some of your stocks and stuff too? You did say Michael Thomas the other day. I do like that play. I do have some Jameis Winston, like. A little bit, like a couple lineups, not like crazy or anything. I do have some Jerick McKinnon in that game for the KC as well to get different. So I do have some of this crazy, like 1 or 2 pieces of them. Some Hardman. I think everyone forgets about Hardman at receiver. I do have Hunter Renfrow a lot. I'm getting to a little bit off of the Adams. I think it'll open up both those guys a little bit more. Waller. I really like that KC or not. I like the KC game, but I like the Chargers Raiders game a lot. Jacoby Myers is cheap too in the Patriots. I know everyone hates him, and Mac Jones. I do have a little bit of him stacked. I have him in Rainmakers actually. Mac Jones, Devontae Parker, and Jacoby Myers with Gesicki run back to be different in the elite wild card thing for 100K. So hopefully that pack. It's a cheap pack. I bought it cheap in Rainmakers. I know nobody probably cares, but I do have some cards. So
Hey, I think it's interesting. I still got to get into that whole thing. I just haven't done a good job of doing that. But I do want to say what's up to everybody in chat. WW Fresh, good to see you back, my man. Do we think Kelce is a good play? Enough play to ignore the ownership? I want to address that.
Before we go on, I still want to go over some of these positions before we do the.
Okay. Yeah. No, we were going to go back to it. I just wanted to get to some chat. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And then I have a content question because, well, I'll address this right now. So when somebody like Willie comes in and says thoughts on Romeo Dobbs at 3K, right? So how do you handle this? Because we went over that, right? And I'm not being mean, you know what I mean? Like we went over that like 15 minutes ago, but he wasn't here, right? So how should we just say, oh, just make sure everybody watches from the beginning or something?
No. I think we can address certain ones. We don't have enough. I think we had more coming in. Maybe then it'd be harder to.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll say for what it's worth that I think Dobbs is fine to speculate on. I would be near the field with him. Yeah. And the same way I would be Wendell Robinson.
So as far as running backs go, before we go, the one guy that I'm looking at the guys I have over 10% on, you know what I mean? Because if I have under 10%, I consider them just like not even worth mentioning or whatever. Mm-hmm. No. I want to answer Willie. That's the whole thing. You know what I mean? I want to do the right thing. It was more from a content thing. I didn't know. I don't know how people wanted me to handle that. No. I want to answer. I want to answer everything. Right? Because I don't know. Because when I usually go do the live stream and I'm like late, I usually just start from the beginning and kind of catch up. I don't know. That's the way I just do. I don't know, whatever. But any questions, we'll totally answer. But as far as running backs, the one guy that you mentioned that I do have over 10% of is the Pierce. So I do have like 12% of him, and the coach straight up said he's the starting running back. You know what I mean? So,
right.
I mean that's rookie with upside. You know, I will definitely be in there on that. What about let's have some fun. Do you have anybody, first of all, before we go into the 5% guy no one's heard of, do you have anybody like over 10%, like at wide receiver, for example, that you think is going to be like less than 5% owned? Like, for example, like I'm like kind of looking.
I think Amon-Ra St. Brown will probably be 5 to 8%. And I have a lot of him. I think Rashad Bateman will be 5%. I have at least, I don't know, maybe 15% of him. I think McCole Hardman and MVS are being a little bit overlooked. And honestly, if these numbers are right, Michael Thomas is really 5% owned. I'll just make that play over and over again and just hope it works. Devontae Smith is another one that I'm over that on. And again, this is another weird one. It's bizarre that the ownership is quite as low as it is on Tyreek Hill. I don't care about the matchup against New England. It's not like we're paying $8,200 for him. He's $6,800. It's another one that I'll just force my way to get some of them just because the upside is higher than anyone else's on the slate probably, and he is going to be unowned. And this may not be the same Patriots team that everybody's used to. But I really like MVS as one of my favorites. Tyler Boyd, Sammy Watkins, Robert Woods. Those are all guys are in that 10-ish plus percent range.
So let me do this. I'm going to rattle off some 10 guys I have more than 10% of that I feel might not be, but you could just tell me chalk. You know what I mean? Because I don't know which of these guys are necessarily like. I think these are obvious. Like Keenan Allen, I have a bunch of whatever it is, but then there's
he'll probably be.
Christian Kirk. Is he going to be chalky?
Yep.
Okay. What about the Dotson from Washington? We talked about, right? He's going to be one of those 3K guys, but I have him over 10%. And then I got Romeo Dobbs, and we mentioned him about 10%. I have like 12% of him. I already mentioned chalky Randall Cobb. Oh, so in the term we've had, what's his name? Albert Pujols has had a good season, right? Is it like against the rules to play AJ Green?
No, I have a ton of AJ Green.
Okay.
Yeah, but AJ Green had a productive year last year. I think he had 5 games over 17 fantasy points. He's 4,600 and they have no receivers. It's totally worthwhile to play him. And everybody just says these little narrative things. And I'm just like, even production wise last year, he was fine. Not to mention that now they literally have like nobody else. Although I do expect Ertz to play for what it's worth today.
So over 10% of him. I still have almost 10% of the Pickens, even though what's his name might play or whatever. Mm-hmm. Just for funsies. And I think that's the only guys I have over 10% of that might be just kind of hoodoo-ish. we get to the under 5%, then we can throw names no one's ever heard of. So those are cool. But anybody else over 10% that you have, Rody, that you think might be a low owned or?
Who are you high on this low owned receiver wise?
Well, let me see.
I'm just scanning my board too. Yeah, like
I don't mind the Rashad Bateman. He's like coming in at like 4%. I got Hunter Renfrow 4%. I'm double the triple on those guys. Jacoby Myers at 4%. I'm double him.
Love the Renfrow play, by the way.
Palmer's probably double the percent. I got like 13 lineups with him. He's like 3%.
That's another thing you should probably consider doing. I'm with you on the Palmer idea. I think that's a really good way to talk about the 3K guys that could get there. Just by being on the field with Herbert in any LA Charger game, you have the chance to put up a monster score. And that he's proven that over and over again. You know what I mean? We've seen multiple touchdowns. I think he had 5 different receivers have multi-touchdown games last year. Why not play Josh Palmer instead of those guys? So I kind of like that, Rody.
Yeah, I got him and Everett mixed in. I'm really high on Everett at tight end today, too. So I'm over on him probably as much as a cheaper tight end to get in my Herbert stacks. But I mean, I got a shitload of Herbert stacks, guys. I mean, so I'm stacking that game up all kinds of ways: double stacks, single stacks, no run back stacks. Like
you're gonna. That's gonna be that's gonna be so funny. Maybe we'll make this a feature, like stuff that I wish I had more of, but I just don't, and stuff that I have too much of, and I'm unhappy about it. I'm glad that you have a lot of this Charger game, because I don't have as much of it as I should. So
I feel the same way.
Hopefully you win.
I'm trying right now. I'm trying to bring down my. I feel like I got way too much Pittman and Marquise Brown. Like I'm sitting here trying to bring these guys down right now. So I'm adding some. Like as we talk through the show, guys, I have my 150 builds up, and these guys are giving me. I'm upping these guys a little bit. I'm bringing these guys down a little bit. So like I kind of listen to everybody, and that's kind of what I hope you guys are doing as viewers. You know, so don't forget to hit the like button too for all the good content we put out. But we're kind of just discussing the slate, getting more and less of guys. So that's kind of what I do here, and just kind of tweak my 150 builds as we do this show. So that's kind of what I'm doing. So
yeah, absolutely.
So what about this? What about this Olabi character?
Wait, we should at some point address the questions. What was that, Sheets?
So what about this Olabi character I've heard about all week long? Who is this guy?
He was one of the questions too.
Okay,
he fits good with Jameis Winston. He's a down the field guy. He's going to take shots. People are talking him up a little bit. Michael Thomas more underneath, but Olavi will burn. He's fast, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So he can hit a big one with Jameis. Jameis likes to chuck. You know, that's why Michael Thomas doesn't really fit with Jameis, because Jameis likes to chuck interceptions down the field. So, but I mean, he could take a shot, so, people talk him up. We don't really know what these rookies are going to do, like Olave, Dobbs, all these young 3K
Drake
guys,
London.
these cheap 4K
Drake London
guys.
even in? We don't even have that information yet, I don't think. Just Drake London.
Oh yeah, that must be that. I do have him in a couple as a run back. I don't know if I like it or not, but
I'm trying to figure out what to do exactly with some of these things. I've got to get some updates on after we get off the show. I just want to make sure I don't want to play players who aren't playing, obviously.
Yeah, let's answer some questions.
Yeah, let's bring up an interesting one that was asked about the Travis Kelce. What do you do? And I don't want to say let's not get into the whole general. What do we do in this situation? That's more for like a pre-recorded show. But Travis Kelce is going to be significant chalk at tight end. I think you'll see some ownership on Waller and Goddard and Andrews, but I think it's really going to be concentrated. I mean, Kelce should be about double the ownership of anybody else. I personally am taking the stance. First of all, Arizona last year was one of the best teams in the league against tight end production, which is kind of surprising because they were the worst in the league a couple of years ago. They're a little worse over the middle this year, but I would tend to go underweight on Kelce in a situation like this and just overweight all the other guys I like, from Pitts, Smith, Andrews, Goddard, Waller, and use up most of their and Ertz and Hawkinson for that matter. I'd rather play those guys. And you mentioned Everett than going for the chalky or Kelce. I'd rather spread those guys out. That's what I'm doing. What are you doing, Rody? And then what are you doing, Sheets, with Kelce?
Yeah, I actually got a little bit less of him, but I think he's still a good play. I just, without Tyreek there, I just don't know what Mahomes is going to feel like he's got to dump it around. But like Mahomes came out and said he's going to spread it around. That's kind of why I'm getting the sprinkle of all these guys a little bit more, so I'm getting like, a little bit of all of them. Hardman, Kelce, MVS, Jerick McKinnon. I'm just throwing a bunch of guys in the Mahomes stocks and just not like going like all in on Kelce or all in on those guys. But Like, yeah, I like Kelsey. I like a lot of these, Goddard, Waller. I'm heavy on Everett. I'm heavy on Hawkinson a little bit. Mark Andrews. I'm just kind of spread out at tight end. Just kind of what's in my stacks. Hunter Henry with a Mac Jones, Ertz with them, Ertz and Murray, Lamar and Mark Andrews. I like that tight end quarterback stack a lot more. Irv Smith, I'm getting some with, Kirk, Kyle Pitts a little bit just in there, but a lot of it's in my stacks. So I'm very spread out at tight end today for some reason.
I'm with the field on Kelsey, which means I have a lot of them. I have like 35% Kelsey.
There you go.
I have a couple of hoodoos. So a tight end. I have a $2,500 tight end. If you're interested, Bellinger from the Giants. He is going to be the starting tight end.
Nothing about all of that sounds just weird to me. As a Dodger fan, Bellinger for the Giants. I just don't like.
That's true. That's true. And you know what? And Bellinger's $1,500 cheaper than Cody. That he's supposedly not that bad. But I have something for you guys. If you want to go to I have a really good play that I have currently 3% of, and I'm just kind of looking at this, and I want to make him 10. So I want to just kind of build up like this. So first of all, you want to play that's going to get leverage against something chalky. So that's good. You want a guy that has upside, which is good. You want a guy that no one's going to play, which is good. And from my perspective, I want a guy that Bobby's like mentioned to me a couple of times. Now I mentioned the Andy Isabella thing, for example, as an example of this, like a couple of days ago. I'm like, said, listen, he's been saying for like a year that Isabella's going to win someone $1 million, whatever it is. I want to bring up a guy that Bobby has played in the past that we haven't mentioned at all. Can I interest anybody in Paris Campbell this week?
Yeah, I think it's fine. I'm totally good with it, actually, to be honest with you. I'm okay with Campbell. No, I didn't end up with much of him, to be honest, but I thought about it, and I just preferred the other 3K speculations a little bit more. How about you, Rody?
Yeah, I don't have. I might have a sprinkle of him, but I don't have much. So,
but conceptually, it makes sense, right? Pittman's going to be probably the most chalky wide receiver on the slate, right? And you probably have other better 3K guys, than him. And it's not like this guy's bad. We played him before, and he's got a better guy throwing to him this year. And I don't know. I mean, I've got one lineup and with like Olave and Paris Campbell. You know what I mean? Like if I have both those guys in, I could play all the Kelsey and Barkley and Marquise Brown I want. You know what I mean? Like So yeah, I'm probably going to juice up a little bit. See, I would have made it. I would have juiced it to 10% if both of you said, "Oh my God, it's the greatest play ever." I'm totally in it. But because I got a little bit better, I'll probably move up to 5 though. But I definitely think it's a decent play.
I'd rather get different with Mo Alley Cox.
I've heard that too. I'm
hearing some hype with him a little bit. No,
Mo Alley Cox to get off the Dean Bellinger chalk. You mean?
Crazy over there.
Oh, I got another tight end from our past.
Oh, great. That's what we need is 15 tight ends to be mentioned.
Oh, I got another. Yeah, it's beautiful. We're talking about Kelsey, right? Excuse me. This all started with your Kelsey talk, right?
Because it was the most chalky player on the slate.
I know. How about David Njoku?
Yeah, sure, fine.
Why not?
Sure, that's how I feel about it.
This is like baseball, man. Anything in the milli maker, no one can argue with.
Especially at tight end. Especially if you're not playing the Kelsey stuff. But I did want to just throw out because somebody's asking they must be having a showdown or not showdown, a season long or something. Dak Prescott. So Prescott or Rodgers, for me, it would be astronomically Prescott today. I think that he will absolutely light up Tampa Bay. This is like the best quarterback in recent history against the blitz. Tampa Bay blitzes as much or more than any team in football. So I would be way high on him. And with that, let's just jump in. We got 10 more minutes or so. What are we doing with the other stuff, like the defenses? We haven't really talked much about that. And I don't think anybody's asked. I think that the Jags are going to be the most popular, and I think that the Redskins the Commanders will be up there. I think that you're going to see some Steelers, some Jets, and some Giants. But I am personally higher on the Jags and Commanders than I am the other ones. I also, if I am paying up, I really like Baltimore and I really like Cincinnati. What are you guys doing with defenses? I know we want to spend down in general, Rhodey here. What are you doing? And then Sheets, we'll turn it over to you after.
Yeah, I pretty much spend down a ton on defenses. Like Commanders are gonna fit the bill. You know, I did like have some Bengals and a couple things popping, like Joe Mixon. Giants. I actually like the Giants some today. Bears a little bit even. I think that's still gonna be a bad game. Like there's some weather. Or maybe grab the Bears are like cheap. Lions at 2K. I think you can even get to some. With like Swift. I know you guys are big on the Hurt stack, but like, you know, people. I mean, he has weapons and he does good, but you know, Detroit's added some pieces. You know, they maybe slow it down. I don't know. We'll see. They're 2K. You know, you just need 5 points, and I think sometimes you're good. You know, if nobody goes off on defense. So, but I'm more heavy on the Commanders. You know, the Bears, Giants. I don't think Tennessee's going to be that great. I know the Giants suck, but like, I just grab one of these cheap defenses and roll with it. So
Here's my comment on defenses as usual. I strongly recommend that nobody take a big stance on a defense. If you're playing 150 or even if you're playing 20, whatever it is, strongly recommend nobody play more than 20% of a defense. And the other thing I would also say is if again on week one, on a week with soft pricing, I think if you want to be a little different, you could pay up for defenses. So that would be, but I really don't make any real big. I don't make any rules. I don't do it. Whatever I get in defense, I just get. And then if I have more than 20% of, I'll just automatically move it down. I mean, that's literally the way I play the defense. But conceptually, I mean, you know, it's not so easy. It's not. You don't exactly want to play the best defensive team. You know what I mean? Like you want to be in situations where the ball's going to be flying. You know, and quarterbacks are going to have the ball a lot. You know, and they're going to be running around and whatever it is. So like for example, Detroit at 2K has more decent kind of upside because like Hurts is going to be kind of like moving around a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. He can make mistakes.
Sacks, fumbles, God knows what the hell could happen.
Oh, we've seen that plenty of times from him for sure.
So I would just make sure to not play too much of a defense. And I also, by the way, not if you want you want to talk about like trends in the NFL or whatever it is. I feel as though, and I felt this for the last year or two, that the defense with running back correlation is kind of fraudulent. I just don't see that because the defenses that you want are not really the defense going to hold the team down with the running backs going to grind it out, whatever. Nobody grinds out anything anymore anyway. And the guys that we want at running back, the guys that we take, are not really the guys that are just going to run out the clock. You know what I mean? These are guys that are like to get the ball in the open field. They're going to kind of do whatever. I mean, if you get a big blowout, sometimes the running back doesn't even get all the run anyway. So for me, I wouldn't go too crazy about that particular type of correlation. And remember, the defense that you want, it's not exactly the team that's going to win like the 13-3 game. It's going to be the one that just gets the freaking tip ball and the run back. And we've seen it a million times. Like the defense that wins the Millie Maker is in some freaking shootout that in like the last freaking possession of the game, there's a freaking tip ball and woo, back for the pick six, win somebody $1 million. You know what I mean? So,
well, you're touching on something I just want to throw out for anybody who does ever script. I think it's terrible to actually do what every site defaults to, which is basically don't have players against your defense. That is an absolutely ridiculous thing. You should have no problem playing players against your defense, especially not quarterbacks. Maybe not quarterbacks, but everybody else should have no problem playing players against your defense. So I just want to throw that out there real quick. Everybody's saying that Soldier Field looks terrible. That just speaks again. You could play the Bears defense against Trey Lance, still unproven. Another spot where sort of like Sheets was saying about Detroit. I think that's
running quarterback.
The weather, running quarterback. You get a few mistakes in the rain and maybe Shanahan, who does tend to try to get creative when the season starts. Maybe he gets a little too creative. I think that now becomes a much more viable defense with the weather being.
I'll say something else for the whole season or whatever. And I said this in our initial video a couple of days ago. With respect to weather, don't fall into this trap. I mean, don't avoid games because it's raining. Okay.
Avoid because it's windy. That's
if it's windy. That's one thing, right? But if it's like raining, how many times have you seen this? I mean, like if it's raining, the defense just slips all over the field and the offense knows where it's going. You know what I mean? Like
it was a great. I saw that on literally. They were talking about it on NFL primetime. Like literally, people don't realize that it's way more of an advantage for the offensive player than it is the defensive player.
I've seen this a billion times, and then you get these snow games, which is even worse. I mean,
Yep.
these snow games, like the defense has to like pedal backwards, and then they slip, and the offense. These one plants, and then they're gone. You know what I mean?
Right.
So just don't get in there. But if it's windy, yes. If it's windy, then it's then that's rough business.
All right, so guys, with the last 5 minutes here, let's talk about. I think these are all really good points in general. Rody, why don't we start off with some of your not leverage, whatever word you want to use, some plays that just in general that you're overweight. We talked about some positions, maybe even recap some of the guys you really like that maybe you're higher on the field than everybody else.
I do want to say one thing first, guys. If you're looking for some late contests to get into, there's like the $5 on DraftKings. It's only half full of 300,000, so they're at 160K. It's
Wow.
a $5 250K first place. Looks like there could be some massive overlay in some of this stuff. So check the contest, guys. Jump in some stuff late. The pro players aren't going to be jumping in a lot of these. They'll drop their main 150 in these, but like they're not looking. They're building lineups right now. So just try to find some single entries and stuff too that are in there. Get some edge. To recap some of my guys, like the Charger stacks obviously, but get different with Eifert and Palmer. Like I do like Jacoby Myers a little bit. I know he sucked, like didn't get a touchdown or one touchdown last year, but like he gets a lot of usage. I know people aren't high on the Mac Jones, but I have a little bit of that stack today. Obviously, the Rainmakers. Adam Thielen, I really like. I'm double the percent on him. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. I probably don't have enough of those guys. I really like them. Juju, I do like. We talked about him earlier. I'm trying to bring down Brown, Pittman. I'm getting a lot of Adams again here now. So I'm getting some of these high. I'm on St. Brown, Hawkinson. I like some double tight end stacks like Goddard and Hawkinson. I like Eifert and Waller. Like I'm getting some weird builds like that where I get a cheap tight end and an expensive tight end. I did try a Kelsey Ertz, but I think I end up getting off of that. I don't have as much as the Miami side. I think they have some good weapons. Waddle and Hill. Hill could blow up today. I do have those guys run back and like Mac Jones. So if the Hill and them are going to be chalky a little bit more, that's why I kind of went with the Mac Jones side. And then I'll put those guys in my builds, like even some Chase Edmonds there, but not much, just a little bit of sliver, So that stack I think is going to be a little bit low owned. Rashad Bateman, I think he's going to be the cheapest he's going to be all year. I think he's pretty cheap. He's looking like low owned. Lamar's got to throw it to somebody, guys. Like I know he runs, but if they're trying to keep him in the pocket, then he's going to have to throw a little bit. So I think he's an option. And Hunter Renfrow also in that Raiders game. So that's really the sum for the receivers.
That's pretty good.
Najee Jones for running back, Kamara, Sanders a little bit more, Eckler a lot, Mixon a lot, Swift a lot. Like those guys are my main. So,
Sheets, anybody else you want to highlight before we get out of here?
I wanted to ask you about Pickens for a second. Is the only reason Pickens was showing up was because they thought Deontay Johnson wasn't going to play? Is Pickens out of play now or no?
I don't predict. I'm not high, or I didn't find myself with any of them, but I don't have any problem with him.
That's just a low total game. I think a lot of people are worried about the Steelers offense and sucking. So I mean, I'd rather go more Najee, but I don't know. Just
I got some more homework.
I'm not really on the receivers or the passing game in Pitt at all, really.
Okay.
Yeah. We talked through everything today. So to answer that question, Banks, and there's no such thing as a must-have on a 13-game NFL slate, in my opinion.
Well, but in fairness, I mean, he's here. So let me bring up the.
I was going to say who I'm playing. Yeah.
Because at FanDuel we really didn't go over it too much. So I'll just go over my stuff. Let me just see real quick.
Oh, I got a golf stack.
Yeah. So I do have I have a lot more of Saquon on FanDuel than on DraftKings. I have almost 50% of him actually, and then I have more. I have a good amount of Aaron Jones. This is where I'm getting more of the Chargers actually. Is on FanDuel. I'm not getting as much of them on DraftKings, but I'm getting the Chargers a little bit more. And I have a heap. Boy, why do I have so much Dameon Pierce on FanDuel? I don't know, but that's where he's cheaper on DraftKings, right? But that's where.
Not percentage wise. I don't believe.
Not relatively. Okay.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you're gonna get a lot of him on FanDuel. I capped him at 40. I might even bring it down more. I mean,
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's crazy. It's crazy cheap. 50.
So that's what I have more of on FanDuel than anything else.
Yeah, he's significantly cheaper percentage wise over there, and I get it. That makes a lot of sense. I'll just throw out a couple of my highest owned running backs are gonna be Gibson, and boy, I'm kind of a little bit spread out other than him. Gibson, I have Swift because I have a lot of that game, but I think it's Gibson and Barkley. My highest owned receivers are unfortunately the chalk in Pittman, but I will be way. My actual highest owned guy is AJ Brown. And my other one, my next low owned guy is MVS, Mark Valdez Scantling. I think he'll have a big day today. So that's what I'm doing. And then I again, Commanders and Jags are my main defenses. Final thought, Rody. One last highlight before we get out of here.
oh, that's a good question.
Bold call.
Don't overthink, guys. Don't overthink the slate. A lot of people week one are like, "Hey, I got to get different. I got to play these 3% guys." But remember, it's so spread out, guys. Like we said, you can play good stacks, play good options. Don't be playing guys like that are off the board. Try to get different. People just get too cute the week one, I think, and then and then just take it week by week this year, and let's get it like we always
get it. Love it, Rody. Sheets.
Yeah, I want to ask one other thing. Sorry, I know we have to go, but I have another question.
So you're okay.
What do you think? I heard some talk that because I know that Kadarius Toney was supposed to be a big part of the season, but then I've heard all this crap about how he's not even on the depth chart or something, that the coaches hate him or something. I only mention it because I'm getting like 5% of him. Is this something you think I have to worry about, or you hear anything about this? I'm just throwing out there if anybody's heard.
I have a take on that. Like, they're all cheap and the same. They've all flashed monster upsides in the past, and yet the one we're going to play is Wendell Robinson, who I have some interest in, but it's not like they're all cheap. Galladay's 48, Shepard's 49. Tony's 41. All of them I'm totally good with. I just, by the end of it, do I really want to just make my whole receiver pool the Giants receivers? It just doesn't make sense. I'd rather take the same 40-odd 100 guys against the in the KC and Arizona game than I would these guys, but I will be mixing a tiny bit of them in. I just don't see any of them really separating. It wouldn't surprise me if any of them had a big day today, but I honestly don't know how to decide which one.
Okay.
That's my take. And you've even got Darius Slayton there too. Still, they've got 5 legit receivers. I mean, by the way, the Giants could be a little better than people think this year. Anyway, guys, we appreciate you. This has really been a fun show. We'll be here every week, and this is going to be a lot of a fun season. So I'll be in Discord all day. I'm sure Rody will be in Discord. We're going to have the screenshots later from the million there's got to be a way all 3 of us can win $1 million, right? Somebody can win the FanDuel, somebody can win the DraftKings.
Well, I will say this, that if our takes are reasonable, neither of us are going to be in contention for the Millie Maker for many, many hours. So, but it brings up another point. If you guys are playing, this is with most of the action in the late games. If you see some guys go off early and you're like in trouble, you should really. And I want to ask you about this. So let's just say, what's his name, Rody, that you have all this stuff in like the late game or Minnesota or the Charger stack. And you're like quadruple stacked up, whatever it is. But all these guys have like gone off in games that you don't have. Are you going to be like stubborn and say, you know what, I don't care. The Chargers Raiders game is just going to outscore these guys? Or are you willing to say, you know what, I got to get off of this stuff and do something different in the name of kind of fight back against these guys?
Yeah, I think late swaps, you got to kind of start looking when you start building hundreds of lineups. Late swap is very difficult. But like you just kind of got to take it line by line. There'll be some lineups where I might move to the Chargers Raiders game that I got some low owned pieces that went off, and I got some games or stacks I might move off of the Chargers.
Yeah,
like you said, like you just kind of play it by each lineup. When you start going through some of your better lineups, what I do is I look at the highest scoring guys. Like a couple weeks last year, like Jamar Chase went off for 30 points plus at like 5% ownership. Well, then I start taking those lineups and like, okay, what do I got to do? And then that's the week the Bucks went off too. Like I just didn't convert the right lineup to the Bucks. and I made the mistake. So I made a lot of late swapping. So I'm hoping to figure it out this year a little bit better. So making those right moves to the chalk when you have the loan, guys, I think is more of the right play sometimes. And then getting off it when you don't, when you need to get off it to save your lineup. So
Hey,
just
listen, guys, I know we went over, but I mean, you guys should be happy that I'm actually kind of into football a little bit this year. That I'm willing to talk more than 10 minutes about freaking football. I mean,
well, you know what? That means you're probably going to have the screenshot today. Sheets like,
well, it's not going to be, as I said, it's not going to be for a long time. I promise you. Unless, by the way, unless I do force into Paris Campbell and he gets his second touchdown, like in the first half. Oh, I'm gonna be getting excited. But we'll see how it goes. Again, we threaten to do this every year to have like that late sweat, whatever. But we'll see.
My biggest wins last year, I didn't realize I had a sweat until literally like the end of the fourth quarter. Like that's the only problem I run into.
You start looking at your account, you're like, holy crap, I'm making a ton of money. What
happened? I was going to lose 5K and I'm up 60.
Yeah,
there you go.
Call that that's the Tyler Higbee effect.
Or I always say the Brandon Ayuk effect because he does nothing, but every now and then he has that 2-touchdown fourth quarter game, and it's like, oh, nobody else played him. He's 0.5% owned. Anyway, good luck to everybody today.
Good luck, everybody.
Thanks, Sheets. Good luck, man. Good luck, Rody. Let's have a great season. And